Congratulations, you found your favorite horror movie again. Today, we're talking about the classic Taiwanese horror film Minxiong Haunted House. It's said that the director chose the most haunted Liu family mansion as the filming location to enhance immersion. Alright, without further ado, let's start the story. In the dimly lit He family mansion, young master, he looks around in terror, constantly hearing a woman's voice calling.
Young master.
Young master, he was tormented to the point of a mental breakdown, rushing into the courtyard and firing randomly into the empty darkness. In the end, as if controlled by some force, he turned the gun on himself. Since that day, strange occurrences frequently happened in the He family, and misfortunes continued. Desperate, Mrs. He hurriedly invited a famous local master for divination.
Is your husband working? He was killed by Chiayi. This chaos just now was lingering near Gao.
Upon hearing this, Mrs. He broke out in a cold sweat. The master also bluntly said that her son was born with a water curse and must stay away from all bodies of water, or he would not live past 14. To ensure her son's safety, Mrs. He took great care of him afterward, but perhaps fate is hard to defy, and tragedy eventually struck. The eldest son accidentally fell into the water and passed away. Mrs. He was heartbroken, but fortunately, she still had her twin daughters by her side. 30 years passed in the blink of an eye. The once young Mrs. He now had a head full of white hair and lived in the old house with her eldest daughter Shengxin and her granddaughter Xiaoqi. On Qingming festival, Xiaoqi and her senior Aji went to the swimming pool to practice swimming. She found the jade Buddha her grandmother gave her bothersome, so she casually took it off and set it aside. Unexpectedly, shortly after getting into the water, the jade Buddha was pulled into the drain by an inexplicable force. Xiaoqi in the pool was completely unaware, but the next second, she was dragged underwater by a strong force. Seeing the emergency, Aji on the shore immediately jumped in to rescue her, only to see a headless female ghost pulling hard on Xiaoqi's ankle. He froze in place, not daring to approach. Fortunately, the lifeguard reacted quickly and successfully rescued Xiaoqi to the shore. Xiaoqi just thought she had a cramp and didn't pay much attention to the earlier incident. She casually changed clothes at home and then went out with her mother and grandmother to visit the grave. On the way, she was busy texting Aji and accidentally tripped and fell.
Be careful. Oh, Xiaoqi, your mom walked away. Oh, she dropped it. Whatever you want, you get.
Rebellious Xiaoqi not only ignored her grandmother's advice, but also dismissed her as superstitious. However, it wasn't long before strange things happened. While her grandmother and mother were paying respects to her grandfather, Xiaoqi seemed lost, her eyes vacant, as she walked towards the depths of the bamboo forest, eventually stopping in front of an altar that had been long forgotten. On the other side, Grandma and Mom found that Xiaoqi was missing and started asking the neighbors around. However, Xiaoqi had already returned to the old house alone. As if controlled by some force, she picked up a kitchen knife and headed straight to the third floor, vigorously chopping off the iron chain that locked the stairway. The door at the end of the corridor was covered with talismans, clearly hiding an unknown secret. Xiaoqi swung the knife again, fiercely chopping at the wooden boards blocking the door. The quality of this kitchen knife is really undeniable. With just a few chops, it shattered the wooden board into pieces. She stepped into the room and finally found a jar with talismans under the bed. Grandma and Mom couldn't find her, so after reporting to the police, they rushed back to the old house. As soon as they entered, they discovered that Xiaoqi had broken into the forbidden area on the third floor. Grandma sensed something was wrong and immediately went to get a Taoist priest for help. Shengxin, focused on finding her daughter Xiaoqi, hurried to the room on the third floor where the shattered remains of a jar came into view, and inside it was just an unremarkable comb. As soon as Shengxin turned around, she caught sight of several bloody words suddenly appearing on the mirror. She leaned in to see clearly, only to find that the comb was floating in midair, actively combing her hair. Shengxin was so scared she wanted to escape but found the door locked and couldn't turn it open. At this moment, footsteps sounded outside and she hurriedly hid in the wardrobe behind her, observing the situation outside through the gap. The person who came in was Aji. He had arranged to meet with Xiaoqi, but she never showed up, so he came to check. However, when he saw Xiaoqi's mother, Shengxin, his expression was somewhat strange.
Auntie, I think Xiaoqi might be in trouble.
As soon as the words were spoken, the mirror on the wall suddenly shattered, and Xiaoqi's crying could be heard from the broken mirror. Then the two discovered that there was actually another space inside the mirror, which, although a bit old, had a layout exactly the same as outside. Following the sound of crying, they looked out the window and saw Xiaoqi approaching the well in the yard, seemingly about to jump in and commit suicide. Shengxin hurried downstairs to stop her, but was ultimately a step too late. Saint Xin had not yet recovered from the shock when a black hand from the depths of the dry well grabbed her tightly.
The Celestial Master's countless merits were cultivated together and also received teachings of 3,600 micro-Taoist ancestors.
After the crisis was averted, the two scrambled under the table in a panic. Just as Aji was about to say something, suddenly, however, just as the words fell, Shengxin heard someone calling their name. Shengxin, as if entranced, walked upstairs in a daze. Following behind, Aji noticed that the calendar on the wall was from 30 years ago. When Shengxin entered the room on the third floor, they saw Xiaoqi sitting at the piano playing. Unexpectedly, she suddenly stopped, took out scissors, and held them to her neck.
又要笑气。
The two did not linger and only wanted to escape this eerie space immediately, but the mirror had already returned to normal, completely cutting off their retreat. At this moment, a commotion suddenly came from downstairs. The two hurried to the balcony to look down, only to see a young Mrs. He directing workers to seal the dry well in the courtyard. Following closely behind were Master Akai and his apprentice. Shengxin then realized that the space he was in was from 30 years ago, and the other side of the mirror was the real world. Through the mirror, they saw Mrs. He leading the master straight to the third floor. As soon as the master entered, he sensed something was wrong. The room was filled with a gloomy aura, and the formation setup had clearly been damaged. He immediately concluded that the woman had returned. She placed a photo on the ground, handed the Heavenly Lord's token to Mrs. He, and told her to strike the woman in the photo hard. The woman's name is Dexin, and she is Shengxin's twin sister. Mrs. He has always favored boys over girls and treated Dexin with indifference. One day, her son accidentally drowned while trying to retrieve his sister's shoe that had fallen into the river. Seeing her mother crying heart-wrenchingly, Shengxin started having sinister thoughts.
Brother, just now you fell at a critical moment.
Mrs. He saw Dexin with one bare foot and concluded that she was responsible for her son's death.
Dexin, it's all you. You are human. You are after check.
Mom, it wasn't me.
I will now write an IOU for each past occasion.
Since then, Dexin became extremely introverted, locking herself in her room all day. Over the years, the prolonged repression drove her completely insane, and she constantly saw strange things in the mirror, shouting at the air. Her mother thought she was possessed and quickly called Master Akai to exorcise her. However, without a word, the master tied Dexin up and forcibly took her away. Faced with Dexin's desperate cries for help, her mother and Shengxin watched coldly, and this indifference was the death knell for Dexin. As Mrs. He repeatedly smashed the token against the photo, the space from 30 years ago began to shake violently. At this moment, Xiaoqi, possessed by Dexin, appeared in the corridor, trying to stop their vile actions. But Master Akai chanted a spell, and her soul was quickly forced out of Xiaoqi's body. Seeing Xiaoqi in agony, Aji broke through the mirror with all his might, returning to the real world, and then hid downstairs with Xiaoqi in his arms. However, Shengxin was a step too slow and was left in the collapsing time-space. On the other side, Mrs. He and the master cautiously looked around, searching for the presence of Dexin's ghost.
Powerless master. Akai!
Uncle, what kind of demon is this?
This is the ragdoll that young Master Lin glared at him.
After taking the Major's accessories, the mischievous ghost became brazen and directly possessed Mrs. He. Master Akai was scared out of his wits and accidentally rolled down the stairs in panic. Mrs. He grabbed a kitchen knife and followed closely. Seeing that he had broken his leg and couldn't move, she directly raised the knife and chopped him into mince. Then she threatened Aji with a knife to open the sealed dry well, and deep inside the well, there was a wrapped cloth bag. Aji opened it and was instantly terrified, revealing a hidden truth. Years ago, Master Akai, under the guise of exorcism, forcibly took Dexin back and subjected him to various abuses with his apprentice. Unable to bear the humiliation, Dexin cut off the long hair that had accompanied her for years, put on her favorite dress, and ended her painful life by jumping into a well. Afraid that Dexin's ghost would seek revenge, Master Akai deceived Mrs. He into cooperating with the sealing.
By doing this, my demon seeds will wholeheartedly stay with Aileen. I have already consulted the Celestial Venerable about this matter.
Hey, you're trying to do something good for yourself, but it will end in a tragic death.
The mother, believing slander, personally chopped off Dexin's head, burned the body to ashes, and buried it in their bamboo forest. The head was thrown into the depths of the dry well, while the hair and comb were placed in a jar under the bed, never to see the light of day. Dexin controlled her mother's body, making her repeatedly kowtow to her own skull in apology, each bow filled with piercing hatred she intended for her mother to continue until she died. Beside him, Aji anxiously shouted, "If Grandma dies, what will happen to Xiaoqi?" This sentence suddenly halted Dexin's actions. Amidst the accumulated hatred over the years, there was ultimately a trace of sisterly affection.
Do you have any wishes? I can help you.
Bury me with my sister.
Seeing this, I believe everyone has guessed that Shengxin has actually been dead for a long time. Back then, when she learned that her sister had jumped into the well to commit suicide, she immediately confronted her mother. Unexpectedly, during the argument, Shengxin accidentally stepped on the mud at the edge of the well and fell into the dry well, dying on the spot. Her strong obsession trapped Shengxin in the human world, unaware that she had already died, and because she couldn't let go of the young Xiaoqi, she stayed by her side. This companionship between the living and the dead was never noticed by Xiaoqi and her grandmother. Only Aji, who has the ability to see spirits, could see her. Later, the police arrived at the scene, and Mrs. He was imprisoned for killing the wolf in disguise as Master Kai. Xiaoqi, unable to let go, made a special trip to visit the prison, but the elderly woman in front of her had already gone mad, mistaking Xiaoqi for her deceased eldest son, and then revealed an unknown secret. 30 years ago, the eldest son of the He family developed feelings for a maid, and they were caught by Mrs. He. To preserve the family's reputation, Mrs. He, with her husband's tacit approval, instructed 2 servants to forcibly throw the maid into the dry well. Unexpectedly, the maid died with unresolved grievances and turned into a vengeful ghost, launching a frenzied revenge against the He family. The eldest son of the He family was forced to shoot himself, the eldest son drowned, Dexin was cursed, covered in black spots, and tormented by hallucinations, while Shengxin was tricked by the vengeful ghost slipping into the well. It turns out all the tragedies were caused by the vengeful ghost seeking revenge, aiming to end the He family line. In the end, Xiaoqi moved out of the cursed old house, while the vengeful ghost, once the maid, remained forever trapped in the house filled with resentment.
Alright, the story ends here.